I'll see your face. What's going on, YouTube? This is Rigel. I'm here with my co-host Matt, who's underwater right now. I was trying to spare you the agony of swimming up to see us, Matt. How you doing? I like the background. That's very, very appropriate, man. That's good.
Thank you. I designed that. Appreciate it.
Indeed, my friend. So Matt and I have been friends for a long time. So him and I are going to be anchors on this Forge of Liberty, which is our channel to spread the ideas and the philosophy of liberty and apply that lens to current events, such as Brian Thompson and how gun control is related to this conversation, and also how the very idea of rights, the idea of healthcare being a right. So we're going to get into some Facebook commentary. We're going to get into video pretty soon here. And we just want to, Matt and I want to take a second and thank you guys for, whoever told you to come see us. I don't think we're getting just people on clicking on their feed just yet. So thank you for taking the time to support us. Please like and share, subscribe, and thanks again for your time. Matt, we're about to take it away. Do you have anything before we get into the video?
Oh no, I'd like to thank everybody too for having me. Rigel, you as well, man. We're doing all this work, getting this going, and I just want to say that we're here to educate and answer questions and talk about things that you may or may not agree with, but we just want to open up the hearts and minds, and hopefully somebody will hear us and have a little bit of a changed view and a better, train of thought, I'd guess, of how you approach seeing articles like this and not immediately go to one way or the other and not think about any other logical reason that could make you, because the media can very well and steer you in a way of exactly. So we really try to be logical here and realistic, and so I enjoy it, and I hope you do too.
Right on. So we have not seen this video yet, so I want it to be kind of like a raw reaction, and
for real, we found it. We haven't actually played it yet. So
true to form, like I said in my last video, I like one take, less video editing, and I think it's more authentic. I think it's really the better way. So if I mess up on something, I'm gonna be very unapologetic about it. So if you guys want to roast me in the comments, be more than my guest in the future, it's all good. I got tough skin, so. All right, let's get into the video. So this is ABC News Live covering the situation here. Again, Matt and I have not seen this yet, so we're gonna get right into this. So,
as former chief of detectives, you led investigations like this. How do you go about piecing this together with such a vague description of the suspect? Someone dressed all in black, wearing a mask, can't see his face. So now what?
So now you look at things, you're going to do a video canvas. But first you have to lock down that crime scene, because you have eyewitnesses who've already testified they saw it. So you go with that video, what that description they have, and you start doing almost like a leapfrog, a bit like a scent, with only a video one of where he runs off to. It's also important this man was there. So this was a target. They knew he was coming, and it was a setup. Right now, we'll talk about motive later, but right now you have to lock down what you have. Those projectiles in the street, those shell casings, and that video, which is always important. I was chief of Manhattan detectives before I was chief of detectives, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of video out there that's going to aid in this investigation. So I think it's going to go very quickly.
And you're talking about video, Phil. It sounds like we're getting photos in now too.
Yeah, he's right. Robert knows exactly what's going on. And these are the pictures. Take a look.
Wow.
That is a picture, police tell us, of the suspect as he grabbed a bike and took off. This is the suspect.
He grabbed the bike after the fact.
Hotel. So you can see he's wearing dark clothes, just like witnesses said. Hood over his head, that backpack on. Grabbed a bicycle after he ran down an alley and took off.
He's on
Bob's right. He could
the
be
side of the street. Looks like
Manhattan, and they have to lock that down. We do have.
Does look like a pistol of some sort.
WABC, our local affiliate here, did with a few folks who witnessed the shooting, and saw the shooter before. So let's take a listen to them.
Was holding my phone, then I hear the shot, And when I look at the guy was with a gun, like, you know, the silent gun. Got like a black gun.
Oh, so he confirmed it.
And I saw him after he shot him.
Wow.
He ran across the street this way. At this time, he stepped out of the car to smoke. And he see the killer 2 times or 3 times he's passing by, you know.
Yeah.
Man, so like that's pretty crazy. So this guy had a suppressor, which is an NFA item, which I don't care that it's an NFA item. You know, that for those of you who don't know, it's a National Firearms Act item. It's treated like essentially a machine gun for the most part. Not that machine gun should be treated any differently than a stapler, but that's another conversation, which we're probably
That's
going
a
to get
whole
into.
nother conversation.
Very related to the topic that. So,
but a very good one.
So, I would argue, this person, if it's his suppressor, speaking as someone who has 8 suppressors. They got his fingerprints. This person's definitely there's nowhere to hide in terms of who he is. Now, if it's not his suppressor, I'd be curious, like, who's missing a suppressor out there, or if he, it didn't look from the camera or from the photo like it was a made at home oil filter suppressor. You know, it's pretty popular. It's like a diesel filter, like one of those big, big.
Yeah, I've seen that
filters, and they true story. The ATF came to somebody's place of business. He was a diesel mechanic for big tractors and all that, and he ordered up just a boatload of these filters. And they knocked on his door and asked him what these filters were for.
Of course,
of course they did. I think they confiscated them. It's on YouTube. You guys can look it up. That's crazy, man. But what do you think, man? Wow. So like crazy. So like, you know, the truth is, Matt and I are more interested in the kind of like the philosophical conversation that is going to stem from this event than necessarily the event itself. But you know, I think, Matt, you were asking me earlier, like, was it planned? I mean,
yeah, and that's been going around a lot, and I'll go into that because first I wanted to definitely say that you know, I've got a little bit more of information than the average person does, not about the person individually. I don't know Brian or anything like that. However, I do know about working at United Healthcare. I was there for quite a while.
That's right.
And man, yeah, and I did IT, and you know, we had to handle a lot of different systems, and we had to do a lot of different support systems for doctors, nurses, hospitals. You know, I mean, you name it, we were the IT person to fix, you know, you name it.
A lot of happy people there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Very much so.
Especially in your relationship as an IT person. I'm sure they're all happy to see you.
Well, the thing was honestly, it was all a remote job. So I actually worked on California time at that point. So everything was a 3-hour lag. So, but anyways, you know, it was, to me, it was a terrible job. No one liked it. It was, anytime somebody would come in, it was like 60 calls in the queue, and when you got a call, they had been waiting for like an hour on the phone because there wasn't enough people to answer the phone because of just how volume it was. So just give you an example, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like 60.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a pretty big organization, though. So I think our IT department over at my place of business maybe gets maybe 10 tickets a day, maybe.
That's a dream to be as an IT guy. I'll tell you, it's definitely something else.
Did you wouldn't happen to recognize this guy's silhouette? I imagine, but
no, I wouldn't be able to recognize him. No way. This was a number of years ago. I don't even think that he was the CEO at the time that I was working there. But
that was my next question, actually. If you knew the CEO, which actually I can't believe I didn't ask you off camera. But so was it planned? You know, I guess not that I don't care, but I mean,
right.
But
that's a serious question to ask. You know, I mean,
it's just.
You know, he's the CEO of a very large United Healthcare company. United Healthcare. I mean, you know, but the thing is that I looked at the math. I mean, 33% denial rate. I mean, that's
on the insurance claims. Yeah, I mean, dude, I don't know what the statistics are on bogus claims versus legit claims, but
exactly. Yeah.
31% seems kind of high, but I know it happens, and as you know, from a libertarian lens, I have nothing against people protecting themselves from fraud. Of course, there's a fine line, I guess. Really leads to a larger question of really healthcare in general. But in terms of the actual the main premise of the question, which is it being like a conspiracy or a plan or whatever, I'm gonna give you my take on both extreme examples. So on one side is a massive conspiracy to assassinate this person by he was gonna let something out about, let's say, the pandemic or something, right? Just full blown. Maybe that could be right, and I, as you and I have talked many times about the coronavirus situation. I was more scared of the economic shutdowns than I was the actual virus, but indeed, it could be. Now, on the other side, it could just be one person who got denied, or someone that he loved got denied and they died, and this person is just making a point by killing them. This Brian Thompson guy. And has nothing to do with organized conspiracy. So I could see it's kind of like, what do you think? You know, what's interesting is, man, that has got to be the first time, and I don't think it means anything. It might, but like to get a suppressor, if that's his suppressor, you got to go through a lot of, you got to wait. I don't know, who knows how long he waited for that suppressor. The longest one I waited for was like 10 months. And,
I mean, you definitely have.
What are you worried about if you're gonna do it in broad freaking daylight? Well, it wasn't broad daylight, right? It was in public. I mean, and they don't make you silent. Like, you shoot a 9mm suppressed, you're gonna hear it a block away.
You're still gonna hear it.
You're gonna be like, what?
Oh yeah.
That? You're gonna be like, especially if you know about firearms. So, do I think it was planned? I don't think it matters so much, but I have no idea. I don't know. But this really segues this nicely in terms of like the whole gun control conversation, because wasn't it a gun-free zone?
From what I understand, it was a gun-free zone, and that's another great question because of how liberal New York is as a whole. I mean, the whole state is really.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so they talking about that, it's just well, this happened in a gun-free zone. I mean, it just goes to show you that criminals, no matter what the law says, they're always going to get a hold of a gun. They're always going to either try to print a gun or make some type of air gun, or even if you're a felon, you can still own a pellet gun.
True story. Remember when I was in Seattle? Remember that time I was in Seattle?
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you, like, this was like a couple weeks ago. There was somebody going around stabbing homeless people. Like, you could look it up. So this was a couple weeks ago. Whenever I was in Seattle, I mean, go on my IG. By the way, Liberty _ Forward _ and yeah. So that week, over in the Chinatown area of Seattle, there was somebody like literally going around mass stabbing homeless people. So,
and I'm sure it was an improvised device. Maybe
no, it was a knife. It was a knife.
Oh, it was a knife. Okay.
Well, from what I understand, from what Dan and I heard, the conversation around just the people who were at Pike. We were at Pike's place. The next morning we heard about it, and we were thinking about going to Chinatown the night before, which is, I guess, divine intervention that we didn't go. But
yeah, I would say so.
But you don't need a gun to kill somebody, is my point.
Yeah, so, I was just thinking that you really don't. I mean, a screwdriver, anything you could buy at a store.
That's the randomest thing you've ever said, too.
I know, but I mean, it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a shiv out of a screwdriver for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I mean,
mummify fatality, flawless victory.
Yeah.
I wish I had a Mortal Kombat theme song here. It's like
we'll have to make one. We'll make one. And guys, remember, we want to remind you, we're still new at this. We're still learning.
Matt can't even keep his head above water right now, for God's sake.
Yeah, for real. Look at me, man.
Oh,
the truth is my good camera died on us just before we started recording.
We spent like 2 hours getting him set up, and
it didn't charge another battery, and I'm working on getting a dummy battery. So that was my fault. But we didn't want to stop the cast for you guys because the show must go on, and so where I'm at is just not very well lit. So at least we have, these gentlemen here running away and fighting for their liberty, and here is oppressive England,
yes,
getting on us because of course, taxes and stuff like that. So
indeed. So basically,
that's the story behind that.
That's the story behind that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that we're gonna have at least a brief top. I was gonna segue, but I think like the whole gun control thing, from the libertarian perspective, or from the conception of rights, right? So there's negative rights, there's positive rights, right? So negative right is essentially a so-called right, that does not impose a duty on someone else. And insofar from the libertarian perspective, and really from any ethical perspective that matters, what it basically means is that it respects the idea of consent. So the individual should not be imposed on against their consent. That includes taking their property, stealing their money, extorting their money, to pay for something you want them to pay for, even though they disagree. Mm-hmm. It also includes, not being, kidnapped. It also includes, by the way, not being forced to provide services for others relating to medical care, right?
Exactly.
So
100%.
And I'm going to do my best not to go on a tangent, because healthcare is not medical care in terms of what insurance is, which is really we can go with so many different avenues here, but healthcare and it being subsidized and mandated only writes a blank check that a service provider has to provide, I guess, sorry for the double speak. And just because there is this blank check, it doesn't create more supply of providers. So it really is a very baseless and a terrible way. Never mind the economic externalities of price control, basically creating price controls. It's kind of what it ends up doing when you mandate that everyone has healthcare. Then they jack up the prices, right? Because demand, it's just a thing, and it's what they can do. And then you also restrict basically new entrants into the market for those various service providers because of licensing or regulatory capture, or the FDA, basically running amok and requiring very specific things that may or may not be beneficial. You basically have less competition. So while you're making it harder for people to enter the market, you're also making it more expensive, which is why when you go to the doctor, they can't tell you how much it's going to cost you to get a freaking x-ray. It should be no different than a damn McDonald's menu. Like, I want an x-ray. Okay, it's going to cost you $100. But
yes,
that the market cannot work when you tie its hands. So that's the most I'll say about that, because I know I will go further on that tangent. But
right.
Healthcare is not right.
But that could go.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I wanted you to break down, from your opinion, why it's not all right, because I felt like I had a really long segment there, and I want to make sure I give you a chance.
Oh no, I mean, you really painted the picture well. I would just kind of say that, just think about. Think about being a doctor. I mean, you're already working voluntarily 12, 24, however many shifts, depending on what you're, nurse or whatever. Again, I'm not a part of.
Sometimes.
What's that?
I think they work like a week straight, a lot of them, and they sleep there, I think, right? And then
they sleep there. They sleep there. But they're voluntarily, however, getting compensated, right? But they're voluntarily went to school, got their license, passed the, whatever the equivalent of the bar is, or board certified, specializing in anything they specialized in. So they earned that. They worked hard for that. That does not equal forcing that expertise on someone else.
Agreed.
And that's not to me, it's not a moral thing. It's not. Well, I don't mean that.
What do you say to somebody that? Sorry to interrupt you, but what do you say to somebody who says, but it's the moral thing to do to force people to do what's right. Right.
That's a great question.
Right. So
yeah,
like, yes, it's technically violating their consent, you silly libertarian, but we have to force people to do what's right. So what do you say to that?
I would say it comes down to self-governing as well. I mean, you would think that, people like, for example, if you're at a like this is a great question that I want to ask actually as a counter question is,
okay.
say you're at a restaurant and somebody's choking on a piece of shrimp and someone so happens to be a doctor, and what if someone that isn't a doctor jumps up, tries to help, and then the wife says to the doctor, maybe their husband wife, hey, doctor husband, you better go, help that guy. He's choking. But, the average citizen should already kind of know the Heimlich maneuver or whatever and all this stuff. But then, but you would know by default that the doctor is more qualified to handle this situation. You would think. I mean, or even a paramedic or something, right? Because of the training that they voluntarily did. I mean, they voluntarily went to school for it. But in that scenario, that's a pro bono because
But you're saying the scenarios they're doing it voluntarily.
They're doing it voluntarily.
Oh, well, that's fine, obviously.
That's what I'm saying.
But what I'm suggesting is someone is coming at you, or let's say that they're I'm hoping to have as many people from the opposing view as possible. And in the future, right? We got I think of a few buddies that I think would actually probably come join and have this conversation. But like, what would they typically say? They would say something like, "Well, sure, it does violate their consent, but it's the right thing to do, and people need to be forced to do the right thing, right?" So then it really, really draws the picture very clearly.
It does.
These people are in favor of coercion insofar as it suits their opinion of what is morally correct to force people to do. So that becomes a very subjective thing and a very slippery slope, right? So then what has essentially happened, look via the welfare state, is the slippery slope of always imposing more and more, right? And it's absolutely taken away charitable enterprise from the private market altogether. Is one of the biggest things I have against the state. Is that now everyone's conditioned to, well, the state takes care of everyone, and really you have no personal responsibility because, frankly, the amount of money you have left over after you pay taxes on everything that you make and own and rebuy and resell and then letting them, well, let's not go on a tangent about the Kamala unrealized capital gains nonsense tax. That I couldn't imagine the idea of having like, and then the 3 Bitcoin that I had 3 Bitcoin at one point, and like I also a tangent I can go on because I sold it and it was retarded, and I today Bitcoin hit $103,000. I don't know if it's still going up as we speak. Pretty amazing. That
is awesome.
It's pretty amazing, and I just want. Matter of fact, Matt, let's take a tangent just to show.
Let's just do it. Let's take a look. I mean,
$102,000
we're the Liberty Forge, man.
Like here it is.
We're forging liberty.
There it is. So,
that's amazing.
Can you imagine now, right? We're like on 3-dimensional tangent here, but now I would have to pay unrealized capital gains tax on $300 and some thousand because and that would represent something to the neighborhood of $100,000, and then it could still go down tomorrow. But it's due today. Let's say that's crazy. That's absolutely nuts. So
especially at where we're at in the year,
yeah,
I think that also has a factor.
Yeah. Now my son needs a choo-choo train and a space set. So no Kamala. That's a terrible idea for many reasons. So look, it's just it's the consent of the individual is the meta ethic that governs how morality works. It's very simple. What isn't yours, you can't take because it's not yours, right? It's a priori. It's axiom. It's axiomatic. It's self-evident. You can't force other people to do things against their will. Now, can you have a personal judgment against someone because you think that they didn't do something that was moral? Correct. But the moment that you use force and coercion, especially at the under the implied threat of a gun, because we're let's assume
that's exactly what I was going to say, and what I was going on my tangent about was
you're no more compassionate, especially if you force other people to pay for things that you want them to do. And force other people to provide services that you can't or are not skilled enough or won't do. So that's a very false compassion. That's a very false virtue. And I'm very unapologetic about just calling that out with hostility. As much as I try to look at both sides and be civil, I really
Agreed.
resent that concept. So I don't know. Healthcare is not a right because you can't violate the consent of others with any moral efficacy. And that's that. That's pretty much it. Now, can you judge the person in your scenario for not helping them? Let's say if they knew the Heimlich maneuver and they didn't. Absolutely.
That would probably fall under a legal issue. Is probably what that would turn into.
Well, the thing is, like, from a legal perspective, like from a libertarian perspective, the legal issue isn't really the problem because, you know, the legal issue is a statist mechanism, right? It's a machination of the state.
Correct.
That there's implied responsibility, and it really lends itself to the same kind of theory of you don't own yourself because now you have to do this. So I don't agree with that concept. I agree with the Hippocratic Oath and kind of that whole thing where do no harm and that you should feel a sense of responsibility to do things. But it's a very different thing to say, I'm going to force you to do the right thing. And then slippery slope argument, I understand, can be a logical fallacy, but it is also true that then it will become, you give a hand, they'll take a shoulder. And that is very valid. And I think we could see that with any temporary government program, as Ron Paul would say, or Milton Friedman would say. You know, there's nothing more permanent, right? And you create another bureaucracy to try to alleviate the externalities of the other bureaucracy that's failing. And
you know what Ron Paul's favorite word was?
No, tell me. What was it?
It was no.
Oh, no, yeah, because he would say, because I read the bills or something. They'd ask him, why do you always say no to everything else? Because I read the bills. You know, he's like, I actually read what
he actually reads them. Or read them. He actually read them.
So yeah. So anyway, healthcare is not a right. And you know what? There's no such thing as a right that imposes a duty on someone else, because it is just human dignity to not be forced upon against your will to do something that, you know, it's one thing. Another thing, it's a very different thing to say, you know, like, for example, one argument that when people don't understand this concept of positive versus negative rights that I hear a lot is, well, you can't kill anybody. And I feel like, you know, it's kind of in the negative right thing. Like you don't have a right to impose on someone else, right, against their consent or to violate their liberty, their property, their whatever. So obviously you can't violate like their life, right? So like but that comes up a lot because people aren't listening to what the concept is. So what you have to do to persuade people along these lines is, you know, first find someone who's actually want to have a conversation, right? Because if you don't, these are very dry topics.
Oh yeah.
They're so
yeah. If you're nowhere near interested, then this stuff would go out the window. And honestly, that's what the government wants you to be. Is they want you to just not want to open your mind. And that's another thing that I saw, and so does Rigel, want to reiterate, is the government wants you to not have a questioning mind. They just want a yes man. You know, they don't want you to think about this stuff, and that's why we're talking about it. That's why we're bringing it down. But
it's not like one individual person, Matt. In my opinion, it's like it's just the machine itself, right? It's kind of like it lends itself to protecting itself and justifying its own existence because there's people's salaries. For example, I always like to use an argument when people talk about that the market can't handle things on its own and so on. So then I'm like, okay, so you're perfectly fine with public or so-called political self-interest, but you're not okay with like private self-interest or profit self-interest. So like,
that's such a good point.
Are there only angels in government, right? I think to the contrary. I think the worst people are politicians, and entrepreneurs are out there providing a service that no one's being forced to buy. On the contrary, with government, you are. So I think it's very important that people understand this basic idea of live and let live. It's so simple and yet so profound. In terms of like it being a meaningful concept to organize society around, which is essentially leave things be, don't hurt others, don't take their stuff. But people want to impose their special interests on others and other groups that they either don't like or they want them to pay for something because they got more than they do. Really, in this country, especially when you're looking at the lower quintile of earners and how well they live compared to the rest of human society over the course of its existence, okay, even the poorest earners in the U.S. live and have technology that Henry VIII didn't have, All right, motorized transportation, air conditioning, basically a computer in your freaking pocket with access to all the information and all the books in the world. You could see what Mars looks like. These are all things that did not come from nothing. The freaking the leaves didn't fall down and then like manifest motorized transportation and engine and so on. These are things that had to be built over time. So there's no floor. I'm sorry. There's no floor on a quality of life. There's no floor on luxury. In other words, there's no point in time, no matter what development economically has been created, that you can then say, okay, this is the new standard by which this is the new poverty. This is zero now. Okay, you keep re-zeroing what poverty is. You're building on you're on the basis of a false equivalence to like, well, back then we didn't have anything, now we do. So this exists, and it's like, well. You can't just keep consuming it and it not like go run out, right? So one big issue is the sense of proportion that people have as it relates to things like this, and it's very frustrating. And then it's also really hard sometimes to stay on task because you can go through so many rabbit holes and rabbit trails.
There's a lot of rabbit holes and avenues. There really is.
I think also like just the economic externalities of healthcare for all. We kind of touched on it, but I'll be really brief, and I want to see what you think about this, Matt. But really, it's and I kind of touched on it already. Basically, price controls. Okay, so how do markets work? They work with prices. So Mises, he's most famous for debunking communism. How did he do that? He debunked communism. Ludwig von Mises, by the way, was he wasn't the father of Austrian economics. That was more like Menger, right? So if you do your 1,000 hours of study, and I'm not the most, I'm pretty well read, but I am not, I'm not an Austrian economist, but that's definitely the school I subscribe to from an economic perspective because I think there's more grounded principles and axiomatic ideas compared to the Keynesians, which is another rabbit hole and another video. But Ludwig von Mises was definitely the one who championed it here in the United States more so and influenced kind of that, Karl and Mises. Karl was, I believe, Mises' tutor, and he basically explained how through prices is how the order of the market works, because price signals, the higher cost decreases quantity demanded, right? So basically, the inverse is true. If you don't have prices, then you don't have a way of knowing what is the most efficient way of doing something. And the market does this naturally. When things are becoming scarce, if they're in demand, the price goes up. And then you can buy less of that thing because, market actors, right, see that signal of demand and they're like, well, I've only got so much. I mean, I can boost my price. And then the more competition there is, the more productivity advances in that relative industry of whatever,
and the lower the price will go.
It'll equilibrate, based off, because profits tend towards zero and with competition, because everyone's trying to win versus the other guy, and price leadership is a big deal. And from a sales perspective, I mean,
you can see it at gas stations sometimes where, one's across the street from the other, and you'll see one that's like 1 or 2 cents less or what have you.
Exactly. And it's all over the place. And I'm the dumbass that goes whatever's on the right lane because I refuse to go to left lane.
I refuse to make a U-turn or whatever. I will write. I know.
Right?
I'm the same exact way.
I'm the exact. It could be
same
50 cents more. I'm going to the right one.
I'm going to the right one.
Which is another thing about you love saying it's a subjective value thing.
Subjective value. I mean, I don't find value in wasting more gas to get a. I mean, it's like the whole theory of why go around trying to find a better parking spot at a Publix when you can just park kind of far away. You're going to have to walk around the store anyway. Plus, we all need the steps. But anyways, all I'm saying is the market should never have any kind of intervention from the government. It's going to do it on its own.
There's no other industry more regulated and intervened than the healthcare industry. So when you distort prices, right, you're sending artificial signals, right, that distort the way that land, labor, material, and entrepreneurs respond, right? So you can, for example, subsidize corn, which we do. And you know what ends up happening? We end up with too much corn. And as a matter of fact, this particular year, and I know a lot about corn because I make tortillas for a living, corn and flour tortillas, and there are so much corn that I don't know this for a fact, but I would suspect the farmers are sitting on it, and at some point they'll probably just burn it. And it's also historically accurate, where farmers have burned their crop, corn in particular, because they don't want to sell it to the market because it's going to dilute the cost, and that's a problem of overproduction. But it's overproduction because it's subsidized, right? It's subsidized. And then we can get into the whole food pyramid thing and how grains were pushed versus meat and all kinds of stuff that relate to, furthermore, how these economic factors, and not just prices, but also things like demand that gets artificially swayed by political opinion or government intervention regarding the food pyramid, for example, which has been highly contested since its inception. But I remember back in school when I saw the food pyramid, and I knew I had to have at least 6 loaves of bread. I think that's what it was, and because the grains are the most important thing. And
it's been debunked since, by the way. I just want to let you know.
That's what I'm saying. It has been.
Yes.
So so what ends up happening is you end up where an X-ray. You have no idea what it costs till after you get the X-ray. My stepdad just got a kidney stone infection, and the first night he was there, dude, $36,000. And he had no idea what it was going to be like until he just happened to ask. But the day after, I don't know exactly the story how it went, but he did, and it was $37,000, and he hadn't even operated. Dude, they hadn't even cut him open yet. He was just in the hospital. Now
that's crazy.
How does that happen? Well, it happens because there's a lot of price negotiation on the healthcare administration side that relate to insurance. Okay, and if everyone has to have insurance, if you mandate that like Obama tried to do, okay, you are writing a blank check for like all the little competition that exists. You essentially create the oligopoly becomes more powerful. So what do we want in healthcare? We want less government intervention. We really absolutely. Okay, let me say something really quick, and then I think we'll go to maybe the next topic. But I understand. For example, like I always argue, private certifications are a perfect substitute for any licensing or regulatory issues, period. Okay. I've argued to the teeth with people who come and are internal auditors for things that we have at the plant that are for programs that we have to pass. And I talk at length about the FDA and how useless it is, and how, there's many negative externalities compared to positive benefits from the FDA existing and all the nonsense it does. And they just think that, well, we need an agency that has teeth so that we can keep people from doing bad things. And I'm like, well, they exist. And in spite of that, bad things happen either way, right? And there's nothing more powerful than it hurting your pocket. And people in government and these Keynesian economists think that people are stupid. They think that if you poison somebody, they're just going to keep buying it. Like, that's not going to make waves. People are going to, so yeah, it could happen, and it's probably going to happen at some point. But you think that people are just going to keep buying from that? And then they come up with these boogeymen, like, well, if Peter Pan, didn't have the FDA back then when they had the salmonella outbreak, which I don't remember. I was working at Planners at the time, so it was, a case study we talked at nauseum. Well, then what would have happened? Like, and let's assume that they would be like the monopoly. Well, then who's going to stop them? Like, oh my God. And you have to they conjure up these ridiculous fantasies about
unicorns,
monopoly unicorns, like Peter, it's like, well, what if and what if? And you know what? Right now, with all the regulatory nonsense, Peter Pan still had a salmonella outbreak, and it still killed people, and they still tried to hide it under the rug.
Yep.
In spite
McDonald's
of
had nonsense.
McDonald's had one. And how many coli outbreaks? So the defects, the errors of the regulatory environment, or what am I trying to say? The programs that exist, the failures are ever present here and now. Okay, the atrocities of the state existing are here and now. No private gang could ever wish to come close to extorting money from people's paychecks without them even seeing it, forcing them into signing I-4 or W-4, whatever the fucking tax form you got to sign. Okay.
Right.
Or you can't work. So then, I love that argument from liberals too. And I'm sorry, not just liberals, but even just status in general. Well,
Status in
you
general.
signed away, your job before. Yeah, well, dude, like, okay, so what am I going to just not work, right? So it's not the same thing to consent to taxation, because if you don't, then you basically can't work in the U.S. I mean, so that makes zero sense. So it's like, if she don't like getting raped, then she could leave. Like, really, that's the basic what your logic boils down to. Like, so
wow,
I really resent that, and I think
Me too.
honestly, conservatives do it way more than leftists do it in terms of like, if we don't like the country, leave kind of concept. And I'm like, well, so you're okay with the girl getting raped insofar as she stays with her abuser? She should leave and makes the abuse okay. And then like, that's not what I said. Well, that's your logic. So I'm following your logical chain of reasoning. And then of course that becomes a hopeless conversation in terms of, persuading somebody to think differently. But yeah, man, no, there's so many. Just if you understand how prices work, just that alone is enough for you to say, yeah, healthcare for all, and the regulatory framework around healthcare and medical care and hospitals and licensing is a absolute disaster. That's why things cost so much, and you don't even know what they're going to cost. And because I mean, what freaking world would you go if you could go to a hospital that told you what you're going to pay up front, and you had a choice between that and what we have now? I would almost rather know up front, even if I pay a little more to some extent, have some peace of mind. It's crazy, man. I don't know. I need to calm down because but what do you think, Matt? I'm sorry to the spotlight here, but yeah, that got me going.
Oh no, it's all right. I just had a question. I come up with these questions, and I like your answers every time.
Yeah.
Is say for example, you go to the store, you go to like 7-Eleven, and you get one of those Arizona iced teas that has the $1.99 printed on the package.
Okay, $1.99 printed on the package.
Yes.
I can't say I'm familiar with the package. I'm familiar with the can and the 99-cent thing. I don't know if it's ever gone up. Are they just immune?
That's
to
my
inflation?
question. Is they have not gone up, or 99 cents, whatever it is, 99
I think
cents.
it's 99 cents. I think.
And you can get like the
Costco hot
one of my
dogs.
a Costco hot dog. Man, it's so good. It's so cheap. You can get a slice of pizza and like an ice cream and like a hot dog for literally like $3, and that's not even a joke. And talk about subjective value. I mean, come on.
So you have in grocery stores you have loss leaders in retail. So people things that get people in the door, and I don't know how much money they're making or if they're breaking even. I have no idea, but it's something that their consumer base has expected, and I think there would be some pretty bad PR for them if it ever went away, at least for some time. And also, it's just a cool thing to be able to say, like, we do this for our customers, and we're going to keep doing it because we think it's
Publix does it very well.
It's just good.
I mean, they
I think
they run a really good business.
but you don't have to make money on every product. Is my point though? You don't have to.
Right.
But they probably buy
as
enough
long
wieners.
as long as you get the consumer in the store, then you're already on the right track.
That's a huge piece of it, yeah. And then there's a merchandising formula and stuff for in terms of like where you place things, and have a little bit of exposure to sales and merchandising and stuff. I was with Borden with DSD, kind of had to learn a little bit about that. But in any case, they probably economies of scale. They might, I don't know, buy 1 million wieners, and then maybe they're making 30 cents on each hot dog too. So, it's
yeah, exactly. But I mean, think about that. I mean, going back to my point is like, you got the Arizona tea, or my favorite's the mango, mucho mango, I think, or something what it's called. But I mean, it never goes up in price. And if you ever read the company's like mantra, it's like, we're not going to do it. We're even if the price and the cost of making this item is going to go up, we're still going to do it. I mean, how do you feel about that as a company? If you were the business owner, would you adhere to that, or would you?
If I was a business owner,
yeah, if you were the business owner, would you adhere to the 99-cent thing? Like, if you say you were Elon Musk and you just really wanted to buy Arizona Tea Company, which is not in Arizona, by the way.
I did not know that. I would have assumed for sure, like by default.
No, it's not.
Oh, wow.
No. But I mean, as far as like price control and everything else, like if the company already controls its own price by advertising it, why can't healthcare companies do the same thing when it comes to products that cost so much money? You know, is there a company out there, and I'm sure you don't know the answer. I guess I'm asking rhetorically, is there any product out there that has the price tag? It better not get higher than this. And in healthcare, yeah.
Man, I don't think so. No, I don't believe so. I mean,
do you think that would be even possible at some point?
Well, I'll give you an example. There's a curve for anything that is any industry that is regulated versus non-regulated in terms of like the market entrants or participants. So basically, the competition for let's say electronics is pretty healthy in spite of there being a regulatory framework. Of course, it would be better off without a regulatory framework in terms of competition, and that competition, would push even better results than what we have. But I would argue, relatively speaking, it's a better situation than healthcare. You could look at, let's say, just take within the same industry, to give you an example. This one I'm familiar with.
I mean, I know it's a very different market. That's a whole different industry.
Yeah, but even within this, you have sub-industries within the healthcare. For example, like you have LASIK, right, which is not as regulated. Okay.
Right.
And LASIK has only gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And you know what the hell you're going to
pay. It has.
Right? Why is that?
It
because
has.
There's more competition. That's the only reason. And
exactly.
In general, healthcare insurance is completely out of the question for the most part. Plastic surgery has actually gotten cheaper. Gastrointestinal stuff, gastro surgeries, it tends to
like bypasses cheaper. And stuff
Those
like that, right?
Not covered by insurance. So the market entrants have to compete on their actual results or their product, right? Their service. Okay. And just guess what? You generally don't have a lot of wait time. You generally have access to your primary provider in that specialization much more so than not, because there tend to be more that pop up, right? So
yeah, there's more incentive.
All right. So then compare that to something that that's more of a primary function. I don't know what the word is. I'm sure my wife does, but I have no idea what the word is. But a regular doctor or something that is more regulated, for example, X-rays relating to oncology, stuff like that. There is no competition, dude. There's the licensing is very, 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 very tight, and
it really is.
The AMA, for example, and all these institutions, medical associations, they become more political organizations than they do anything else.
I'm sure it is.
Lobbying for more restrictions and more barriers to market entry. And I think there's a psychology there too, or sociology there, where essentially you essentially have an exclusive title or club. And I think there's for example, I'll tell you from personal experience, I have NFA items, right? I have suppressors, right? I resented the idea of paying $200 per suppressor for a tax stamp, right? And submitting my fingerprints and submitting a bunch of information over, like if I was in the military again, okay?
Right.
But once I got my suppressors, okay, at the range, dude, like not that many people have suppressors compared to those that do. And it kind of gives you a little sense of exclusivity, and you kind of get a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. Yeah, I have suppressors. That's kind of cool, like something that most people don't have. And it's the same thing with machine guns. Everybody who has a machine gun doesn't want it to be legal because they lose the exclusivity. And I think that's what happens with politicians, with doctors, and what was your question, sir?
No, Mike, I'm just taking you off here. This question came up is, do you think that the shooter for this CEO had that same mentality? Because of how hard it is to get a firearm like that. Knowing because you do it, you've done it. You're a gun enthusiast.
Mentality in terms of what? In terms of being exclusive, like having a sense of exclusivity and owning a suppressor, or a specific?
Yeah, because do you feel like this? Because why I'm asking this is because, do you think the shooter had some sense of superiority?
Oh, sorry, Matt.
That's all right, man.
Some sense of superiority. I mean,
if I was trying to play like devil's advocate, I mean, was it if it was an enraged family member or something like that? Do you think that would have had an effect, or
I think so,
on his thought process, because as far as I know, I don't even think that he's been caught yet. I don't know. I've got to get caught up on that. But I mean, he just ran away with a bicycle. You know what I mean? And I don't know. The reason why I asked that was because, you know, a lot of people, when they see, you know, a gunman, when they have that huge buzzword of a gunman, you know, you're actually, you know, thought, gosh, okay, gunman, you know, oh, be scared and fear mongering. I mean, of course, any kind of shooting situation is going to be scary, of course. But I mean, was this person a professional? Was he just someone who just got a gun from his, you know, dad's? I don't even know the age. I don't know how old the person was. I think he looks like a male, I think. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, I again, I'm going to reiterate, I really don't think this was a random act. I think this was planned. I think the reason why I'm asking about the whole thing was because if it was planned, then, you know, there are going to be definite records. If this guy has a sense of pride about having a suppressor, there's definitely going to be records and a paper trail of who this person is, you know, where they came from, you know, is it somebody that might have been tied to the FBI, or is it somebody that was tied to the government in some way? And you know, all that stuff. I mean, that brings up so many questions about this whole entire thing. You know, so you know, those are some of my thoughts about that as you know.
Okay.
I know. I went on a little tangent there, but you asked the right question, and I just wanted to ask, like, because sometimes I think on my feet on that, and you know, I'd like to pick your brain about it a little bit, you know.
Absolutely.
So.
So actually, Matt, we have a couple of people that were chatting us, and we didn't get a chance to address it because I guess I'm still getting used to this. So we have Johnny.
Yeah,
Scoville.
guys, we're still getting used to it. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. So I just wrote him a chat. So the truth is, right now I have concurrent viewers. Like, I'm gonna be super like transparent here, guys. Like, here's what I see. I have no idea who's viewing or who's not viewing. So I don't know if Johnny or Double G is in the chat, but I'm gonna go ahead and
shout him out. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being
Luis,
here.
You know, thanks for.
I'm gonna answer the questions. Let's answer the questions for him, just because.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Terrible.
Let's
At least
do
in
it.
retro, they can come back and see we gave it a shot. But yeah, so.
Sure. Yeah.
Anybody who's we'll get better at the chat thing. It's my first ever live stream ever on YouTube, so you guys just have to bear with me.
Yeah, we're learning, man.
So I'll be pretty unapologetic about that. So sorry, but I'll get better. So
we will.
So let's see. So the logic of this situation, in terms of the logic, if we're talking about the shooter and their logic, I mean, I'm sorry, I can't pretend to know, man, like what somebody in that would be willing to do that, what they might be thinking or what their logic is. I imagine this person was hurt, you know, and I guess that's not true. I guess I can't pretend like if you put a gun in my head and said, what do you think happened? You know, I would say somebody got denied that was close to him, or maybe he got denied. Maybe he's about to die, you know, and I think he's trying to make a point. And
or maybe disgruntled employee,
or maybe disgruntled employee. I mean, that's possible, but definitely this guy's upset, and he's upset either at the company or he's upset with him as a CEO. So that's the best I can do, Johnny. So it's Brian Thompson. Wait, with Brian Thompson. Hello. Yeah, sorry. So this guy's probably gone. I feel terrible about that. So then, are they talking about the CEO? Is this live? Why have a chat if you're not going? Yeah, that's what it is. So that's all we have. Peace, bro. Sorry, man. So yeah, as far as I was talking about the CEO, we were talking about the CEO, but then we kind of went on a tangent where, you know, in brief, in case you guys come back, or just to summarize, we went on a tangent where we started talking about gun control, because I can't confirm it was a gun-free zone, but if it was, we kind of went on a tangent on there, and then we also healthcare as a right, and then also kind of touched on the negative externalities of healthcare in general. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So I don't know, Matt. So we're pretty much at the end here, man. I completely got off track when you were talking because I was like reading this. I was like, oh God, we miss these guys. So
it's all right.
What was your last question, bro?
Oh no, just about just going into the mentality of what he's thinking right now, and like I said, was it a disgruntled employee? Was it someone that knew him? Was it somebody that didn't know him? Was it definitely was it an attack of pre-planned from some type of agency or government agency or anything like that?
I feel comfortable saying it was planned. I feel comfortable saying it was planned. Sounds like Johnny agrees in the chat. What's up, Johnny? And I also think that he was obviously disgruntled. I just don't know if I would, for some reason, I just think it has something to do with the claims being denied. Someone he knows is about to die, or he's about to die, and he's like, man, I'm gonna take it out on, make a statement. And I don't want to pretend to know his political affiliations, but it's
one thing. If you're Johnny Scoville, the Johnny Scoville, I'm a big fan. I've been on the bus for a long time, and if you are Johnny Scoville, the real man, if you were on this live stream, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. So I just gotta say, if that's really you,
can Matt, you tell me who that is? I have no idea. Is that
Johnny Scoville? He is a hot sauce reviewer.
Okay.
And his last name is Scoville, like the Scoville unit. So Johnny, if you're watching,
that's right. Matt,
watching,
Matt
Johnny,
likes drinking. He likes eating ghost peppers and all that crazy stuff, man. He tells me he gets like a high off it. I don't know. I don't like my food to hurt. I don't know about you guys. It hurts in, hurts out. I'm good, dude. I am good.
Yeah. Admittedly, I actually have some ghost pepper hot sauce on my desk right now. So, yeah, that's you, Johnny. You're the man.
Oh man.
But yeah, he is known for like doing the most craziest hot sauce and hot pepper consumption, and he can take the heat. He's got a channel called Chase the Heat. Oh my gosh, it's awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, but sorry. Anyways,
it's all good. We never got to share the meme scene, so we have like this thing.
Meme
scene every day. So we got kind of like a little script. So meme scene, and this is me basically on the other 98%, which I tend to troll as much as I possibly can, because I can't. I struggle with a lot of what they say. So I try to not be inflammatory, but I try to just say it like it is. So we went on a tangent here. I meant to show this, but I didn't think about it. So, but yeah. So health insurance, like anything else, should be for profit. And Walter Block likes to say, he's an Austrian economist over at Loyola, anarcho-capitalist, and he wrote a book, Defending the Undefendable, relating to how, in a free society, how roads would be organized, and how would we take care of things like oceans, and a lot of the problems that we have relating to ecological negative outcomes, for example, why do giraffes not go extinct or rhinos or whatever? And it's not necessarily because in Africa, not necessarily because of government subsidized preservation efforts. A lot of it actually has to do with hunters and their landowners who have these animals on their land, and they make sure that they repopulate more than they are killed. And go on YouTube, you can see people going killing giraffes. But the population, like the owner, has a incentive to maintain that population of giraffes. It sounds like I wouldn't shoot a giraffe necessarily, but the point that I'm making is that where there is ownership, right, there is going to be they're going to be more of a steward for that asset or for their property. And the problem with ecological negative outcomes is public land. Look at all the ecological disasters in reference to pollution and so on. It's always relating to a public so-called land or utility, right?
Exactly.
A river, an ocean, a garbage landfill. These are all things that nobody, quote unquote, owns. And so Walter Block goes into a lot of detail into what's called the tragedy of the commons, and it's not something that he coined, but it's just what happens when you have public ownership, when no one owns something, there's less stewardship, and it's kind of really obvious. So when I was kind of going off on a tangent there as far as the whole healthcare thing, but he likes to. Oh yeah, I said that whole thing just to go on this, just to say this one thing about Walter Block, which was, he says, if something moves, privatize it. If something doesn't move, privatize it. And since everything either doesn't move or moves, privatize everything. And so I kind of tried to allude to that here to Walter Block, saying that just like hospitals and everything else that moves or does not move should be done for profit. So wow, so yeah, you got to be careful with me, man, because I'll go like on a 5-minute tangent. And we're lucky if I come back to the main point. But anyway, oh man,
it's all right. We'll circle back.
We will circle back. Man, it's been a lot of fun, dude. This has been a long stream.
Has been a long stream. I think we, I had a lot of fun just talking about it. And, definitely just, again, I'm going to keep reiterating, is just opening up your minds a little bit. I mean, if you're curious at all about anything, people are like, well, I've heard the term libertarian, or I've heard the term anarcho-capitalist or whatever. This is the place to come to get those questions answered. I mean, you see us live, don't hesitate to just ask us any questions that you might have about libertarianism or volunteerism or anything like that.
Absolutely.
Or
I'll
economics.
make sure I'm looking at the chat a little bit better.
That's our fault. We'll definitely get better at that. But even if it's not on topic of what we're talking about, you can always ask us a question, especially if it's like, I would love to answer questions about if we were living in a Campistan, what would happen here and what would happen there. There's actually a whole subreddit dedicated to Ancapistan questions as to how things would be handled, which is really cool. And a lot of people think the word anarchy is just such a bad word, like I mentioned earlier, but it's just liberty. It's just liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and being left alone is the biggest thing. Yeah. So that's all I got. That was my tangent. So
fair enough, man. Well, I am grateful for you, Matt. Grateful for everybody who jumped in on the stream. I'm super excited that we were getting some engagement, and we're gonna keep doing this and growing the channel. I know humble beginnings, but definitely. Ben Shapiro started off somewhere, and so did Dvory, and
so did Ron Paul.
So I thank you guys. This is Liberty Forge, and we are Matt and Rigel. And thank you so much again. We will see you guys next time. Peace.